There are a number of things that are necessary to be successful in life, I think. And, you don't need them all to do each thing in the world. If you want to be I don't know, a snow shoveler, then you don't necessarily need to have the brains part, like the big brains. If you're going to be the quantum mechanical physicist, chemistry, megabyte dude, then you gotta have to have a big brain. You have to have a lot of smarts. So you don't need everything for everything, but there are a bunch of different measurements that I think we use. We use intelligence. We use interpersonal skills. Just being able to get along with others and such. And there are probably 50 different things, which you could put them in any size category you want. But there are a lot of different things. And today we're going to talk about one that I think is one of the top reasons people are not successful. And I call it oomph. It's kind of oomph and follow through. And it kind of ties into this idea of if you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And there are so many people in my life who I have tried to mentor, I've tried to coach, but they just couldn't do it. It just didn't work for them. They weren't interested in really, truly learning how to do something and then doing it well. And if they were a little bit interested, they didn't have the oomph to follow through with it, to keep going. And this is why they don't succeed. And an example, and I'm just making this up, would be if, let's say I'm going along on my ATV ride in the spring or the fall, whenever I go on my walkabouts, and I come to a ravine and I see that there's some people setting up camp there. It's a family. And I say to them, hey, in this part of the country, there are a lot of flash floods and they could, and you don't have a warning. It's not really a good idea to camp in the bottom here. I'd suggest you go up to that set of trees over there. And then you're on higher ground and you have shade. But it's none of my business, but I suggest you do that because you could die down here. And like, yeah, you know what? You're right. You're right, they say. And then I see them keep setting up camp. And I say, well, it's none of my business. I'm not not your daddy here, but you do understand that a flash flood could come and that if you're up there, you'll be completely safe, but down here you won't be. Yeah, you're right. You're right, they say. But then they don't do anything about it. They don't have the oomph. They don't do the follow through. And they put themselves at great risk. And it's none of my business. But it saddens me when I see people who could do so much better in life, but they make these mistakes and they don't have what it takes to get through them. Another example, I had a friend recently on social media, I know in the real world, and he lives somewhat near me. And in the part of the Rockies where I live, everybody's a long way away, but we know each other. We see each other a time or two a year. And I saw him saying on social media that his shoulder is just in horrible pain and he's going to have to get it operated on, he thinks. And the same doctor is going to do it who did the other shoulder. Well, it just so happens that I had recently been to an OMM, and it's a type of a doctor who doesn't do an invasive surgery. It's a fascia manipulation thing, and it worked for me. And so I said to my friend on social media, hey, check out this guy. It's a good thing. And then nothing. And then a week later, he announces on social media that this is the worst pain that he's ever. It's just horrible. It's excruciating. And now he has an appointment for 2 weeks from then to get surgery. And so I sent him a text message and I said, hey, by the way, I will pay the $250 for you to go see this doctor. Like, this is how much I believe in it. You're my friend. I don't want you in pain. Please, I will pay. Go do it. And his response was something to the effect of, gotcha. That was it. Just left it. And now, in his defense, you know how anytime you have an ailment or something, there are always a lot of people who come out and say, oh, you need to do this, you need to do that. And you have 25 people who say that their second cousin twice removed tried ginseng infused Brussels sprout snake oil and it cured their ails. And so you got to take it with a grain of salt. But I've proven myself to this guy over the last 30 years or so to be a trustworthy guy who doesn't go for wild harebrained stuff. And I care about him and I care about, I'm a serious guy. I'm a logical, rational guy. And he just blew it off. I could lead him to the water, but I can't make him drink. He doesn't have the oomph to say, okay, I don't think this is going to work, but I'll do it. I'll take Shepard up on his offer, make him pay for it. If it works, then I'll pay for it. But if it doesn't, Shepard will have to pay for it. Like he could have done that, but he didn't have the oomph. I'm guessing that's what it was. And that's just so saddening and so frustrating. A challenge for me is that I look around and I see so many people are mad at other people for not being where they are. Well, I didn't take the vax, and since I didn't do that, I got fired, and that's why I'm poor today, 3 years later. Well, big props to you for standing up against the man and doing what you believed was right at the time. There are consequences, and you're facing them, but actually, you only faced them for a while. At least for the last year, there haven't been strong restrictions. You can go out and do stuff. You can start a new business. You can come up with a new idea and do something. You can educate yourself in, I don't know, coding or whatever. I've got to think that they're the coders who take a couple years to learn it, and they're the ones who get paid 2 or 300 grand a year right off the bat. But then I've got to think they're the people who can do a self-taught month or two course who could still do fairly well, at least make 50, 60, 70 grand a year. Maybe I'm wrong. For those of you who are tech wizards, tell me if I'm wrong. And this isn't doing it the way you want, that you think is better, but this is getting hired by a big company who needs a lot of people, and they say, this is what you're going to be doing. And no, you can't say, oh, that's not, doesn't work. You need to use Linux. Linux, no, just like doing what the boss says. There are so many opportunities, from jobs to starting new things up. My buddy tells me the other day, he has this idea, and he's for a month or so he's been wanting to share it. We never met up in person, so he finally just told me on a phone call what his idea was, and it's a good idea. It's a handy thing. I have been involved with enough invention related stuff that I don't think it has legs, but it's a free idea. There are thousands, tens of thousands of ideas out there, and a bunch of them won't work, and a bunch of them will, and some of them would at least work on a small scale. Like this idea the guy had, it's not enough to get me interested, but somebody out there who's just trying to make some bucks, well, you could make these little things one at a time and make 20 bucks for each of them and probably make several in an hour. But it would take doing a little bit of work to figure it all out. That takes oomph. It's all about the oomph. I'll bet you that there are 4, 5, 6 billion people who would love to be able to make 20 bucks an hour, 40 bucks an hour, making little widgets in the comfort of their own hut, but they don't have the oomph. And I completely understand. Some people have a really tough situation. And if you're a gal with 13 children and each day you walk 10 miles to get to the muddy river with a salad bowl on your head to try to get water for your family, and you get raped a few times each way, yeah, you've got more serious things to think about than watching a bunch of YouTube videos and reading a bunch of books on how to develop yourself, this personal development thing, this business knowledge thing. Yeah, you've got other stuff, but there are plenty of billions of people out there who want this thing, but then they don't get it. And it's right there. With the internet now, I work with a number of people, offshore workers, and I selected a country based on a little bit of research that I hear has the best for the type of thing I do. And they aren't that great. And they could be. One guy is. I've got one guy who's great and a gal who's good. The guy who's great, I'm helping him start a business. He's editing a bunch of videos. And he's going to be hiring people and growing his business. I'm going to be mentoring him. I'll invest in it. There are all kinds of opportunities if a person just gets on and does it. But so few people have the oomph. And even this guy, he's busy still going to college, finishing that up. He's going to college in 2025, and it's not to be a doctor or something like that. Like it's not for something you have to have a degree for. I think it's computer science or coding or something like that. You don't need college for that. From what I understand, you just need to be really good at it, and then you get a job. But he's doing that, and it's because he doesn't have that oomph. Or people will say, "Oh, you know what? I would do it, but I've already worked 12 hours today." Well, yeah, people who get crap done in life don't work 12-hour days. They work long days until they get to a point that they can relax some. My wife and I spent a lot of years working 80 to 106 hours a week. It's a lot of hours. It's exhausting. It wears you out. It's not a good work-life balance that the UN or whoever wants you to have, or the World Economic Forum. It's not that good balance. No, you don't have a good balance when you're getting stuff done. You think Bezos had a good work-life balance when he was building his company. Now he gets to chill out and have some fun. But for many years, he was busting it. He had oomph. And I've had oomph off and on over the years. And I'm again just saddened when somebody doesn't have oomph. Here's another example. One of the offshore workers just recently this year I decided, okay, I'm going to, for my primary business, we're going to do the Gary V plan of putting out a ton of content. And I can't do it alone. It needs to just be a very small amount of time I put into it. So I think, how do we automate it? We use AI. These offshore workers are helping me. And I announced to them, here's what we're going to do. We're changing our social media plan. It's going to be releasing a video a day, as close as we can get to that, but at least 250 or 300 this year we're going to release, and they're going to be decent. They're not going to be the highest of quality, but they're going to be decent. And I've mentioned Gary V several times, and I linked a video and I said, everybody watch this 45-minute video to get some ideas. Now, what do you think a person who has oomph would do if they knew that that's what was important to their boss? Even if they said, I don't think that's a good idea, but I'll talk to the boss and say, hey, that Gary guy, I don't believe he has the best strategy. Can I share with you what I think would be better? And then either we do it or we don't. But if you're going to go along with the boss's plan, wouldn't it make sense to have the oomph to say, okay, who's this Gary V guy? Has he written any books? Maybe I should go on my own time, not charging for this. Maybe I should read a book on it. For hell's sake, I go to college for 4 years and pay all kinds of money and waste all my time to get this piece of paper, and it's not specific for anything I'm going to do. But a person won't even spend 8 hours to listen to an Audible book or to download the free PDF and read it and learn, okay, what's the strategy? Why not become an expert on it? You've got this opportunity. There are hundreds of thousands of people in this person's country who would love to be making the money that I'm paying her. She's feels so fortunate to have the job, but she doesn't have the oomph to put in any effort to learn more, watch more of his videos if that's easier, whatever it is. Just a lack of oomph. And now the people who have oomph, you probably won't find them working for 50 or 60 or 100 grand a year. They've been promoted high, or they left, or they started their own thing. If you have oomph, you don't stay at the bottom. And I challenge you to really examine yourself. If you're thinking, I've got oomph, I've just had a bunch of tough things happen. Oh yeah, I get it. And it's those of you who have had a lot of bad things happen, whether they're your fault or not. Of course, I hope you're accepting responsibility for them. But if you've made 50 bad turns in the last 10 years and your life is now a real pile of junk and you're trying to get it fixed, you've got to be smart about it. You got to have oomph. You've got to follow through. You've got to reach down deep. You got to work a lot of hours. That's the only way you're going to make it out. It just saddens me so much when people don't do that. And I'm not saying nobody does it. I've been fortunate the last 15 years in our business. I've had a good handful of people who had oomph, and they would go above and beyond and do things. And it's just, you see them one day and they're like, oh yeah, I saw these and I bought some, try these out. And they never bill me for the $5 thing. They're just like, no, I'm trying to make the company better. And I found this thing. And so I took the initiative to buy it. I didn't fill out a requisition order and I didn't ask for permission. I just did it and said, hey, try these out, Shepard. If you like them, I'll tell you where I got them and you can get more. Like, that's oomph. And it's not that difficult. It's just something you have to have in order to do. Another example is another guy who realized that a bunch of our stuff wasn't properly labeled. And the old timers all knew where stuff was, but as new people came on, they didn't know where things were. So this guy gets the label machine off the drawer or off the shelf and makes labels for a bunch of stuff. And now we know where things are. And he didn't ask for permission. He didn't ask if he should, just instead of batteries, if he should just say bat or BATT or BAT. No, he just did it. He just made it happen. And maybe I wish he had shortened the word and he wrote the whole word batteries out, but it doesn't matter. I'm not going to come down on him for something little like that. He had initiative. He had oomph. He had follow through. He actually did it. And again, I've been so fortunate to be surrounded by quite a few people in my life who have had oomph. And I also see so many people who I really love, I really care about, who don't have it. And I try to hand them success. But I can say, hey, why don't you move out of the ravine? Hey, why don't you try this doctor? I'll pay for it. Hey, why don't you learn about the guy whose model we're following? Hey, I can do all this. But if a person doesn't have oomph, they're not going to do it. And they're going to make up excuses. Well, you're hardly paying me anything anyway. And then you expect me to go out and do a bunch of stuff without getting paid. Okay, fine. Fine. You don't have the oomph. You don't have the follow through. You've got to make your choices. You can be the victim. You can complain. But I really wish more people would suck it up and quietly make stuff happen. Don't brag about it afterward. Just make it happen. People will notice. Have the oomph, get out there, make it happen, have the follow through. I want humans to be successful. And that's why I'm kind of passionate about this. And I hope these words have helped you or somebody you know, if you'd forward it to them, that might inspire them to reach down and have some oomph. They can do it. We can do this thing.
Please subscribe, oh my heck. Please subscribe and make a smart comment. Shepard thinks. Shepard.